Hey, hey, hey. Time for another out of this world story from rSpace. My ex-fiancée cheated on me, and I reported her to the IRS. Nothing could have prepared me for the events that followed my ex-fiancée cheating on me. We had a great relationship. We had already moved in together, and we were making wedding plans. Leah and I met and started dating in high school. We broke up when we had to go to different colleges, but always somehow found ourselves hooking up whenever we were up for the holidays. It wasn't anything serious, but there was the knowledge that we still both had feelings for each other. I wasn't willing to commit, and she wasn't willing to commit either. We were both enjoying whatever it was that we had then. But I met Sabrina, who's a very important part of the story. Sabrina was hot and extremely intelligent. We had a few classes together on campus, and I ran into her at the mall during one spring break. Leah had gone off on a road trip with her friends, and I was alone. Somehow, I started seeing Sabrina a lot, and before I knew it, we were having sex. Sabrina knew of my relationship with Leah and wasn't complaining, but I knew I wanted to be in a fully committed relationship with her, so I waited until Leah got back from her trip to tell her that I was going to stop screwing her. Leah was seeing some guy she met on the trip too, so it all worked out well. I asked Sabrina to be my girlfriend, and she said yes. I was happy. However, things weren't going so well on Leah's end. We still kept in touch because we were friends, and I told Sabrina everything, so it wasn't like I had anything to hide. Leah was calling and texting and telling me how her new guy wasn't good for anything, and she was feeling stuck in the relationship, so she wanted out. I told her to do what she knew was best for her, thinking that would be the end of it. She told me that she had broken up with him because she caught him cheating on her. I supported her decision and told her that if she needed anything, she could count on me. It was something I came to regret because she would call me and show up at my house at weird times, even when I was in college. There was a particular night she showed up at my dorm after driving almost 4 hours through the night. I innocently thought that it was because she was having a hard time, so I let her sleep in my bed and went to crash in my friend's bed. She left 2 days after. I later overheard some of my dorm mates bragging that they had screwed her, but I didn't pay them any attention because it was none of my business. But Leah continued doing crap like calling and showing up randomly until Sabrina complained that she wasn't comfortable with her doing all that. I agree with Sabrina, but I told her I thought it was probably because she still had feelings for me. I called Leah up and told her that it was best if we ended things. She was hurt, and she said she understood, so I went back to Sabrina and our relationship became much better after that. We stopped talking after that, and Sabrina and I graduated college. Sabrina was a computer programmer and was really into video games, just like me. We thought of ideas and messed around with creating our own games. It was usually fun for us. We created a video game that surprisingly went viral, and we were able to sell it to a major gaming company for a lot of money. The money wasn't enough to buy luxurious cars or flex big time, but it was enough to live comfortably. It helped that I got a job at a top Silicon Valley company with nice pay and great benefits. The job eventually caused a split between Sabrina and me because I wasn't spending as much time with her. When she also got a job at a company with a fast-paced environment like mine, we barely saw each other. It was an amicable split, and when we both weren't busy, we would hang out. I decided to go home for Thanksgiving so I could see my parents after a while. It was there I met Leah again. It started innocently. I would run into her at the store and we would have a chat. She had moved back home after college and worked at a local company. We had dinner once before I went back to California. It was fun catching up with her, and I promised to keep in touch. After I returned, we still continued to talk. We exchanged lots of texts and calls. I developed feelings for her again, but I wasn't sure if she felt the same way, so I didn't act on it. 6 months after, she found a new job in California and moved there. It was only natural that we began to spend more time together. We started going on dates, and she told me she still had feelings for me. I admitted that I felt the same way, and then we started dating again. On our 6 months anniversary, I asked her to move in with me. Because of the nature of my job, I spent a lot of time at work, but I was able to work from home occasionally. I wasn't seeing her a lot even the times I worked from home, despite the fact that we were living together. I tried my best to make things work, but I was so busy. We had an argument where she told me I was too focused on my job and wasn't paying any attention to her, while I told her that if she put as much effort as I did in her work, she would be made executive in no time. It was our first fight. I apologized afterward and made amends. Somehow, I got a promotion at work that meant I wouldn't be spending so much time at work again. She took my words to heart and she started focusing more on her work. It was great. Because I was in a fully committed relationship with her, I wasn't talking to Sabrina as much again. But Sabrina got a job where I worked and we became colleagues. She understood boundaries and we always made sure not to cross the line. I told Leah that I was working with Sabrina, and she said she had no issues with it. Then she started complaining about how her boss didn't want to give her a promotion despite how hard she had worked for it. I told her to talk to him, and she said she was going to. Somehow after that, she started spending more time at work. She would return late in the evening and was always going on work trips. When I talked to her, she told me it was because she talked with her boss and he told her he just wanted her to work harder. The reason was solid, so I had no reason to distrust her. Soon after, she got promoted at work. I was really happy for her, and I even took her out for dinner. I forgot to add that I was the one taking care of all her expenses. We weren't sharing expenses because I'm a traditional man and I believe that it is a man's duty to take care of his woman. I also knew that her family was going through tough times and she was responsible for taking care of their expenses. I would send her allowances every month to do whatever she wanted to do and to get groceries for the house. She was free to spend her salary on whatever she wanted, but she mostly told me that she was sending it home. I didn't mind at all. After her promotion, she began spending more time at work to the extent that it was like we were having a long-distance relationship. I told her she was prioritizing her work over us, and she promised to find a solution. She began spending more time with me. Then her boss got promoted at her work and was transferred to Boston. She got his old position, and I noticed that she started traveling even more. I was left to my own devices most of the time. Sabrina would come around to say hi a few times. After I told Leah about Sabrina's visits, she exploded, telling me that I was spending too much time with Sabrina, and it was starting to get suspicious. She even went to the extent of calling and threatening Sabrina to stay away from me, even though I told her there was nothing going on between us. I got off ties with Sabrina, which hurt because she was a really great friend who I had been through a lot with. Then, Leah comes to tell me that a position opened in the Boston branch of her company, and she wanted to take it because that was the headquarters of the company and it was easier to climb up the corporate ladder there. She wanted to take the position and have me move there with her. I saw the effort she had been making to become a top executive, and I didn't want to stand in the way of her career. But I didn't want to have to move to Boston when I had a perfectly okay job in California. She accused me of being selfish and trying to make her completely dependent on me so that I could freely cheat on her with Sabrina with the excuse that we were working together. It caused a huge fight between the two of us, but I loved her too much to let the fight go on for too long. I was being headhunted by a company in Boston, so I took the position. It didn't matter that I was just 6 months from the evaluation that would have gotten me another major promotion. I reasoned that it wasn't like I really needed the money. So we moved to Boston and I got used to living there. The work environment wasn't as fast-paced, so I had free time. But Leah, on the other hand, became busier. She was traveling a lot more, and they gave her a position where she had to be working with her old boss. I wasn't suspicious because he was married with kids and he seemed devoted to them. But they grew closer and I started feeling uncomfortable. They were spending so much time together at work. When I talked to her about it, she told me I was just overthinking things and they just had a great working relationship. At this point, I was getting suspicious, but there was nothing I could do. I just waited, thinking that if something were really going on, I would gather evidence first. I started by trying to get access to her phone. Leah was always on her phone. She even took it with her everywhere, so there was no way I could get access to it. I decided to leave it because it was too much of a hassle, and frankly speaking, I knew her boss had nothing on me. I was quite the catch. But the next month, something happened that made me start doubting her again. Leah and I had synced our Fitbit account so we could be accountable to each other. Due to the nature of my job, I lived a sedentary lifestyle, and I liked to walk around to keep fit. Seeing the other person's step count often motivated the both of us whenever we were feeling too lazy. But one morning, while I was checking the account, it showed that Leah had walked a considerable distance the night before. She had come back home while I was asleep, so I wondered where she was walking to. When I asked her why she had come back late, I asked her, without talking about the Fitbit, why she had returned late. She told me it was because she had a meeting and she was stuck in the office trying to finish her work. I then asked her about the Fitbit, and the shocked look on her face made me even more suspicious. I guessed that she had forgotten all about the watch when she went on a walk. She told me that she had taken a long walk to clear her head and had returned to the office afterwards. I could smell the BS. I let it go because I didn't want her to be suspicious. The next day, she goes on a trip out of town. I called her office to see if her boss was in, and I was told they were both out. Leah had gone on the trip with her boss, and she hadn't told me. She told me she was going on a work trip to Las Vegas, but her assistant told me it was a work trip to Manhattan. I knew that it definitely wasn't a work trip like she had claimed. I decided to get even more concrete proof. I spent the weekend at Days. My work productivity declined and my supervisor noticed. I decided to take a short leave, stating that I was ill. My leave was granted. As if things couldn't get worse, I got a call from a random number while I was sleeping the day before she arrived. It was a hysterical woman telling me to handle my woman and keep her away from her boyfriend. She spat out all kinds of vitriol before I got her calm enough to talk clearly. Apparently, she found texts between my ex and her boyfriend, where they were sexting and exchanging nudes. Leah had also been buying him stuff, and that was how she got suspicious enough to go to her boyfriend's phone. I was crushed. It was bad enough that she had lied and gone on a trip with her boss for their rendezvous, but apparently there was more than one guy. I wondered who all the other men were. I knew it wasn't healthy, but I just had to know everything. Who she was cheating with, where and when it happened, everything. When she got back from her trip, she could tell something was wrong, but I told her it was nothing for her to worry about. She fawned on me a bit and told me that she was going to give me a treat. She dropped her bag and went into the kitchen to cook. I decided to go through her bag to see if her phone was there. I entered her password and got in. I went to her frequently used app, which was Instagram. It was a revelation. Her DMs were filled with various messages from different guys. The messages were mostly raunchy, and they were from guys who were younger and didn't really have anything going on in their lives. I discovered that she had been giving some of these guys money in exchange for sex. I wasn't deficient in the bedroom department. My size is above average, and I actually know where the clitoris is. I didn't have time to go through her phone comfortably, so I installed a spyware so I could check at leisure later. I returned her phone to her bag and left the house because I couldn't stand to see her. I went to a hotel where I lodged for the night. There was no way I was going to go back to the house while she was still there. I drank a bit and texted a work colleague I was pretty sure liked me. When the work colleague came over, we messed around for a bit, but my mind wasn't in it. Even though Leah had cheated on me, I didn't want to do the same thing and give her the justification for her actions. I apologized to my work colleague and she left. I stopped drinking and started thinking of what to do. I mean, I had sacrificed a friend, a job I liked, and money for someone who had continued to lie to me for years. I went through the apps on her phone because of the spyware and discovered that she wasn't only giving guys money, she had been screwing her boss at work for money and work bonuses. That was how she had gotten promoted and why she had wanted us to move to Boston so she could be closer to her boss. Their relationship had started right from when we were in California and hadn't stopped, even when his wife discovered and asked them to end it. That was why the boss had moved to Boston in the first place, so he could save his marriage. Then I found out that her family hadn't been through any financial crisis and she wasn't responsible for them like she had claimed. The fun part was discovering that most of their work trips hadn't been for work at all, and they had been charging their trips to the company's expense book. It created a way for me to take my revenge. I went back home the next day and gave her an excuse that I had left the day before because of a work emergency. I applied to my old place of work, and luckily for me, they had a position for me. I sent my 2-week notice to my workplace and accepted the job offer. When we moved to Boston, I bought the house that we were living in, and I kept it in my name because a friend had advised me not to include Leah's name. When she went on another of her work trips, I moved out and put the house on the market. I then sent all her stuff to her workplace, along with the screenshots of the conversations between her and her boss. Not only were they engaging in a non-ethical sexual relationship, which was against the work rules, they were also stealing from the company. After I did that, I reported their theft to the IRS and sent them the copies of the screenshots that I made. Then I went back to California. I changed my phone lines and deactivated my social media. I waited until I started at my new job before reaching out to my parents, so they weren't worried. They told me she had gone crazy looking for me, but I told them that I never wanted to talk to her ever again while I called her a few choice words. It hadn't been my intention to let my parents know what went down, and I tried to spare them. They told me they would not allow her to talk to me again. Update. So Leah somehow managed to get my number from my sister and reached out to me. She started pleading and begging that I take her back, that she had changed. I told her that I felt nothing for her and that I couldn't take her back with everything that she had done to me. I told her that if she ever called me again, I would report her to the police for harassment and I would get a restraining order. I then told her that it was in her best interest to stay completely far away from me because I still had screenshots of everything that went down and that I'd disgrace her by showing it to her entire family if she disturbed me again. Her family was pretty conservative and they wouldn't have stood for all the rubbish she did. Update 2. I called and challenged my sister as to why she had given Leah my number even after I asked her not to. My sister told me she had felt pity for her because it seemed like she was going through a lot of trouble. Apparently, she had lost her job and she was charged with theft and misappropriation of funds. Her former boss had pulled some strings to get himself out of the mess and she was left hanging. Then she owed the IRS a huge amount of money because they had smacked her with a huge fine. So basically, she was in deep crap, and that was why she had come to meet me, to see if I was dumb enough to help fix her problems. It was a great thing that I had instantly cleared her out, because if I hadn't, she would have tried to extort money from me. The last I heard, her family was trying to raise the money to hire a lawyer for her. I don't feel guilty for doing what I did. If I had to, I'd do it over again.